On this episode of AV Week, we talk about sharing knowledge within the AV industry, manufacturers reaching out to customers and clients to get feedback on products that they should make. Also, how AV professionals translate AV into IT. All that and more next on AV Week.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is AV Week, episode 311, recorded Friday, August 11th, 2017. Dialogue or Die.
Support for AVNation is brought to you by Kramer, AV Beyond the Box, and by Atlas IED, innovative audio solutions for every business environment.
This is AV Week, your weekly wrap-up of audio-visual news and information. My name is Tim Albright. I am your host. With us to talk about the news and information we have gathered this week. First up, my buddy, pal, the left-hand side of my brain, and a fine human being. His name is George Tucker, and he has a new title. How are you,
Indeed,
sir?
I do. I'm all right. Good.
What's your new title?
I am Director of Product Education for Aurora Multimedia, starting
Woo-hoo!
Monday.
I've always said that Paul Harris is the smartest guy I've ever met, and that right there freaking proves it. Hires George Tucker. All right. Next up, his name is Kevin Barlow. He works for Draper. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, thanks.
Awesome. And last but not least, actually, Adrian and Kevin are both newbies, so George, be nice to them. Adrian Doughty from Nareva. How are you, Adrian?
I'm well, thanks.
Adrian is coming to us from the Great White North of Canada. Go Flames. Actually, go Blues. So forget the Flames. Sorry, he's in Calgary, so that's a hockey reference, kids. All right, here we go. First up and foremost, this stuff comes to us from our friends over at Commercial Integrator. Extron has a new button layout, and this is not necessarily about the button layout, although we were going to talk about it for a second. It's the new Extron eBus button panel. Now, here's the thing about this button panel is we'll show the video here. The labels are field labelable, if that's a word, and that's the word that Commercial Integrator used, so I'm going to use it. The reason I want to bring this up, though, and talk about this is knowing Extron and knowing interfacing with them from the time I was a tech manager to an integrator and a programmer, and now they're one of our underwriters. This came directly from something that I want to start talking about with you guys. This came from a couple of different councils that they have. And what it is they bring folks in, and they're not alone in this by any stretch of the imagination, but they bring technology managers in, they bring integrators in, they bring consultants in. And part of the training, and they do this through the training in Anaheim and the regional stuff. But part of that process is they will bring their engineers into this room, and they'll say, "All right, kids, what do you want to see? Right? What would be helpful to you? What would make your life easier, better, faster, more profitable, stuff like that." I will guarantee this came directly from one of those conversations. George, I want to start with you on this. How important is conversations like that? How important is getting feedback from not just the manufacturer's clients, in other words, the people who are actually writing the PO and ordering this, but also the folks who are speccing it, right? I mentioned the technology managers, background that I came from. This happened to me as a tech manager, not just with Extron, but with other companies as well. Well, they're picking the technology manager's brain, they're picking the end-to-end user's brains and saying, okay, how can we help you? Help us help you type thing. How important are conversations like that?
How much longer do you want to be in business is the question. It's actually of the ultimate importance, right? I mean, I know it almost sounds like a silly question on the face of it, but in reality, it's a hard thing to do, because sometimes they want the sun and the moon, and that's okay to ask for, right? Because as my mom used to say, shoot really high, because if you miss, well, you're not that far down below where you want it to be. Absolutely, because this is about how do we make these simple systems or these complex systems up and running. We all have had these problems with keypads where you have to put in temporary, or you had some guy like me who had to do the Brother P touch and do the temporary label, so they got used to it and said they liked them. Or you would order engravings, or you had to use the packet sets that were with them, and you say, well, we'll change that for you, but just get used to it. This is great because almost instantly the system is there. It's sort of like being able to change your GUI on the fly. And it makes all of the end users immediately appreciate what it's supposed to do and how to get there. And I think it's a pretty darn interesting. I can't believe no one else has really done this before. Yeah, they've given buttons, they've given stuff that has pre-engraved, but man, oh man, to be able to do this on the fly, they look good, they're colored, they're backlit. I like them a lot. Now, I will say I have two little qualms about it. One, I always worry about the excess garbage that we create in this industry, and that seems to be something that often will get tossed, or parts of it will get tossed. And what do we do with those? It's an open-ended question. I don't know what we're going to do with it, but it's one to think about. Like, I've worked at a residential dealer. I can't tell you how many boxes of button we have from the different manufacturers. What do I do with these things? I could probably recycle them, but it just seems like a wasted sort of process. Like we've made them just to dump them. The second is, you said you were going to show the video. How did you get to the video? Because I'd love to see how this works, but it says log in. How am I going to be sold on it if I don't log in?
Interesting.
And now it's a minor criticism, but hey, if I'm going to be enticed by this, especially as an end user, or at least a corporate end client, I have no idea how these things work.
Interesting point. And then what he's referring to is on the commercial integrator article. You got to log in to find out some more information. You could probably go to Extron's site as well. So,
yeah, but I couldn't find it on the site.
You couldn't find it. Okay, you can find it on the site. So we'll dig that up. I'll shoot an email real quick to Extron at the end of this. So, Kevin, same kind of question to you. As Draper moves forward with you guys' rebranding and such, how important is getting feedback from the folks who are purchasing your products to help make them better?
Well, it's more important the people who are influencing and specifying it. So purchasing, yes, absolutely. But what Draper has been doing, and this predates me, I've joined the company since May. And going back for a couple of years now, we have a consultant liaison manager who's basically calling on the audiovisual consultants and architects. We have a sales team that calls on architects. And they're getting that feedback directly from the people that are writing the specifications, the tip of the spear, so to speak, to get that information. So what Extron's doing, whether you're inviting people into your shop, which is always great if you can get people to come to your place, as you know, or going to them, whichever is the most expeditious way to get a great sense of where the market's going, where the needs are going, so that you can apply what technology you're developing to meet those needs. And so that is definitely happening within Draper, and it has been for some time. In fact, we were in Texas recently, hitting Houston and Dallas doing that. So hitting the consultants, the architects, and the design leads from the major integrators is very important for any manufacturer.
Adrian, when you're talking with these end users or the consultants or the clients, how do you temper their excitement or their wish list? Right? They're going to say, George mentioned it, I want the sun and the moon. Right? Well, we can't quite get you to the moon, but we can get you kind of halfway there. How do you do that tactfully?
So to do it tactfully, I find you really have to get in and understand what the end user's goal is. And understanding the end user's goal starts with just sort of taking the de facto statement that the end user's goal is actually to have the tech disappear into the room, right? It can't be something that they have to fight with. And in order to manage that expectation, you have to understand the experience you want your product to deliver for each individual tied into that process. So you've got the end user, you've got the consultant, you've got the spec-in guy, the architect. You have to understand the expectation at each level and make sure that you can deliver against each one's unique set of needs and wants.
All right, very good. Moving on from our friends over at AV Network at SCN and AV Technologies, the folks over at New Bay. AV over IP. They actually did a special in Denver this last week where they highlighted and had some folks do some presentations on AV over IP. But this is talking about bridging the knowledge gap between AV and IT, and I'm going to expand it a little bit more. Quote unquote, the number one issue for integrators working in and with converged AV and IT systems, it's knowledge. AV professionals are familiar with audio and video, but when it comes to a deep understanding of networks, needs, configurations, and operations for enterprise level, medium and large business applications, there is a need for a greater understanding of tech and technical expertise. AJ, I want to start with you on this. You come from the world of IT. When it comes to not just sharing the knowledge, but also bridging, I guess, the knowledge gap, and it's a clumsy phrase, but I'm going to use it. The knowledge gap between the AV folks and the IT folks, or the AV folks and the electricians, or the AV folks and the architects. How does that translation happen? How do you get someone to translate from AV speak to IT speak?
So it's not a good answer, but I truly believe it. The only way it happens is intentionally. You can't get a project team together and hope that the AV specialist is going to know and understand what the IT specialist wants. So you have to design an engagement program where that project team is either working together so that they can sort of bleed each other's knowledge side by side, or develop a training program within the organization to ensure that that information exists on both sides of the fence, because this convergence isn't going to stop, right? It's going to get worse. It's going to get more impactful, and making sure you're intentionally getting ready for that expectation from your customers is going to be a difference maker for your company.
All right, Mr. Tucker, and your brand new title of Director of Product Education. Let's put that education to work here. How do you not just educate your client and the folks buying your product, but also the folks speccing it and the IT manager? And let's be frank here, a lot of IT managers have their hands on AV systems, or at least approving them, and their budgets are purchasing them. How do you get them to understand what it is that you're trying to do, both on their network and at a broader scope of what the AV system is actually going to end up doing?
Well, it's dialogue, right? It's sitting down and saying, what is it we need to accomplish? What is it you can accommodate? And let's find the methodology that works. So, look, I also teach for CEDIA. I teach an introduction to AV networking. It's for high-speed networks for the residential commercial install, right? Everything from the very basics to some of the higher end stuff of how to actually do QoS and the switch and the VLANs and the VPNs and all that other stuff. And we don't know it well enough, do we? I mean, there's still a gap in communication after all these years of the boots on the field or the boots on the ground not knowing exactly how to have that dialogue. And it should be as essential as understanding how to wire an RCA connector, or how to solder, or how to pull that cable. It really needs to be that fundamental. It's in depth. There's a lot to know, but all of your techs that do anything beyond pull the cable and put it to one point need to understand how that system works to go, at least, yes, it needs to go here because of this, and then defer to someone more knowledgeable about some of the minutia. But even some of our high-end guys designing it don't know. The programmers don't always know, which is remarkable sometimes. But you need to have that dialogue, and you need to find out what will work. Is that solution within the same 10 gigabit, 1 gigabit network? Or does it mean you run a parallel network? Because that's really what works best. More expensive, but you know what? It may be the answer that you need. And once everybody knows, that's where you sort of avoid the conflicts and everyone saying, I didn't know that. And then the kerfuffle starts.
So let me ask a dangerous question here. It's 2017, dude. Mm-hmm. I remember a mutual friend of ours sent me a picture at some point. We were talking about AV and IT convergence. 2002, 2003, Infocom had this big banner that said convergence. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. My math is not that great, but that was about 14, 15 years ago.
Yep.
Why don't we know? And I'm saying we as the royal we. You said we, a lot of times the installers don't know. At this point in the game, why don't we know?
I think it's seen still as magic. It's still given that aura of sort of the hacker attitude and people knowing these little fundamental things. It's dangerous. It's work. And it's not what we've grown up on. A lot of the people who still come to this industry from the outside are musicians, are tinkerers, who may know enough. But look, we've had this conversation on shows, and you and I personally have had this conversation about how even some of the younger set, the younger generation, know how to use the application devices, but do not still understand how it fundamentally works inside. How many of those people that we know in their 20s, who are maybe even just tertiary to the AV industry, even understand how to set up their own Wi-Fi router beyond I just push the one button and it works? Too many, way too many. And, we've made this joke. I have, because I travel a lot, and my wife works a lot. We have au pairs. And one of the three things that I teach them that I want them to understand is how to set up their own Wi-Fi network up in their room. Because then they do it because they said, then nobody has to be. Unless you want someone to do it for you, otherwise you can handle it and you're nobody's slave to that. And I think it's one of the fundamental things they have to learn. And we still haven't done it, though.
All right. Kevin, you'll have the last word on this. Draper is not the first manufacturer you've worked for. You've been in the industry for a number of years. Take that experience and how do manufacturers convey this knowledge to help the integrator really kind of have not just a seat at the table, but have a conscious seat at the table and know what they're talking about?
Well, the problem is that us in the audiovisual world have been picked up and displaced into the universe of IT, which speaks a different language, but nobody really forced us to learn that language. Some gravitate towards it naturally. Some have been coaxed into it, but there's a whole swath of our industry that has never been forced to learn the language. So it's no different than if you were dropped into another country and you just tried to figure it out as you go along, but you never actually went to school, learned the language, and started speaking it and became fluent. It's the same situation for us. Part of it, I think, is frankly laziness. If we can get by with the effort that we're putting out, why do we have to go and change so much? So the answer, in my opinion, and I echo what Adrian and George said, it's education. It's not just offering education, it's requiring you have to learn this language. We're not going to hire you if you can't speak this language. We're not going to promote you if you can't speak this language. And I'm not just talking about technical people or designers. I'm talking about salespeople. I'm talking about everyone in the organization. If you live in France and you don't speak French, you're probably not going to get served very often. And you might get hungry, and that might motivate you.
Well, to quote Molly Bloom, yes, yes, and yes again. I full-heartedly agree.
I'm sorry, that was the best analogy I've heard in a very long time. Talk to this fat kid about eating, and you got my attention, dude. All right, last story here. Let's move on here. Our friends over at AV Magazine. It was an interesting story, and I wanted to bring it up to have a conversation about it. The title of the article is called "Understanding the Lie of the Land in AV." Quote unquote. The land of AV is a complex one. We are, by the definition, attempting to make a disparate set of products from a range of manufacturers work together to form a simple-to-use solution, often with many features and functions. AV system consultants, designers, integrators, engineers, and programmers often get bogged down in this complexity, losing sight of the end user and their needs, with an inevitable effect on adoption. Kevin, I'm going to start with you on this. How do we explain to folks what we do? It's a conversation that we've had before, and a buddy of mine that has been on this program and several others of ours, his name is Rich Fregosa. He's been a programmer for 25, 30 years. He still refers to himself as a VCR repairman, right? Because that just kind of helps the folks. But how do we convey this? This is what AV is, and this is kind of what we do.
So if we take the language metaphor one step further into this topic, in this field, you have to be able to switch hats or switch language, depending on if you're speaking with the architect, the end user, a programmer, whoever you're dealing with. You always have to try to imagine the conversation and the goals of that meeting or that conference call from the other people's perspective if you want to be successful. And if you want the project to succeed, you have to be willing to take that step, and you have to have the ability to take that step and look at it from their vantage point and take the culmination of all those things and combine them together. And you also have to be able to take what you're bringing to the table and explain it, no matter how technical it is, in terms that they grasp. I like using word pictures. I like anything storytelling, anything that gets an idea, a concept, past their language barrier or their understanding or their perspective, and helps them to get what the result is, what the goal is. And to me, the most important thing, and I think part of the point of this article is get out of your shoes and out of your world and look at it not just from the end user's perspective. This is what I've seen over the years. Most of the time, the end users that are involved aren't even the end users that are going to be using the room and living in the room and responsible for the room. And you may not even know those people. You may never meet them. They may not have been hired yet, especially if you're in a project for a building that's going up in 2 years. So you have to figure out how to project yourself into their universe. You have to ask all the right questions to understand what their universe is, and then take all of your knowledge and your company's expertise on technology and what's happening and what's changing and what are the trends, not just technology trends, but use trends, use cases, and try to melt that all together and do it in a way that helps everybody get the big picture.
Adrian, we've made references to this a couple of times. You came from the world of IT, so I want to take a different approach with you on this. When you came to Nareva, how did you, to use Kevin's verbiage, how did you learn the language? How did you kind of wrap your brain around from the IT world what this whole AV thing was?
So I'm really lucky that I came into an incredibly supportive environment, and just by nature, I'm a lifelong learner. I love to learn new things and attack new problems. And one of the things that I came with was, as we just heard, was use cases. And I just want to talk about that for 1 second. I was in a conversation 3 weeks ago where someone said, as little as 5 years ago, the phrase use cases just wasn't even mentioned in the AV world. And I can't even imagine not having those use cases to rely on to help understand everyone's individual perspective. Because once you know what the use case is, what the goal of that room is, you can pull apart what each person's responsibility for designing and enabling that room is and really help them get going there. And that learning, having those use cases to rely on, was absolutely key to me being able to step in and pick up quickly. The IT knowledge was there, right? It was easy. Yeah. The AV knowledge is a pretty close brother, but it's a distant brother who moved to England 10 years ago, and I've got to reintroduce myself, if you know what I mean.
You should have used France there in that analogy. You would just keep the French thing going.
I didn't want to be accused of stealing anybody's metaphor.
No, not here. It's all one big melting pot. All right, Mr. Tucker, you'll have the last word on this. George, for those of you who don't know, you started off his I guess technically AV career in the recording studio, right? Many years ago. And he's, just like Adrian, lifelong learner, taught himself programming and this, that, and the other. So George, same kind of question. How do you get yourself either from the recording studio to, control system and switch manufacturer, or just, explain from your perspective, getting somebody who's brand new into the industry, getting their head wrapped around this thing we call AV?
Well, it's dialogue or die. And I mean that in the sense of the Socratic dialogue, right? An investigation, an inquisitive questioning of what makes up what you're examining. So you're in the AV industry, which really isn't AV. I mean, that's the first problem, right? It's a misnomer now. Mm-hmm. We no longer are simply, there are very few shops that just do distributed audio.
Well, and just for real quickly, we've never always been just audio and video. You've got control, you've got lighting, you've got other stuff, but go ahead.
Well, yeah, and now it's even more. The lighting is a new one. There's heating, there's the environmental stuff, there's the IoT control of data acquisition, which we are now heavily involved in, whether we like it or not. The inquisitiveness that we've all danced around this entire sort of show has been about that dialogue or die, in order to find out what is needed. Instead of again, I've always had this idea or problem with the idea that solutions based, right? Because often it's used from the industry side as saying we're providing solutions, when often on the installer side, it's seen as just the manna from heaven and that's what you do to solve the problem, rather than saying, what is it you really want to do? If you've ever dealt with education technology or education installations, and Tim, I know you've dealt with this, the teachers can often be either the best advocates or just hellacious, because they don't want to learn this complicated thing. They don't want to understand what it does for them. And it really does take that effort of documentation, dialogue, and direction to give them the tools to say, I can do this. Same thing when we were talking about IT and understanding networks and high-speed networks for our industry that we need. It's all of those things. dialogue, direction, and directive. You need to do that. And that's really what it comes down to is here's where your growth pattern's in. Here's how this darn thing works. Now you can grow with it. That's the only answer I can really have for that is you got to have that conversation and understand what you're doing for. Just like one more then, I guess the adage is, you know what, today, sometimes the overhead projection is the right answer. Much as we wouldn't want to put it in, it's the right answer.
Are you talking like the old overhead projector?
Yeah,
with
they still sell them. Sometimes that's the right solution.
Ladies and gentlemen, George Tucker is way older than I ever will be.
We can talk about film strips and that little boom sound, but that's a different
or slide projectors. At least you didn't say that one.
I'm going to ship you
I did work on those.
I'm going to ship my 8-track to you, George.
There you go.
Oh, yeah. I actually had an 8-track. So I am that old. So, all right, guys, that's going to do it for us. Thank you so much for joining us. Mr. George Tucker, how do people find you or your brand new spot at Aurora Multimedia, sir?
Well, it's auroramm.com, or you can find me on social currently as Tucker Tunes.
All right, very good. Adrian, thank you, sir.
My pleasure.
How do people find you and or Nareva?
You can find Nareva at nareva.com and follow us on Twitter at Nareva Inc.
All right, very good. And Mr. Barlow, sir, thank you as always.
It's kevin.barlow at draperinc.com.
All right, very good. Or you can go to draperinc.com for all their stuff. My name is Tim Albright. At this point, don't follow me because NFL season has started and the Bears are already out of the playoffs. So I'm a Bears fan. So but go by the website if you would, please. Awful lot of people have put an awful lot of hard work on it. AVNation.tv, AVNation.tv. While you are there, please check out our underwriter section. These are the folks that make AVNation possible. We're actually getting ready for CEDIA. Companies like Draper help us out financially throughout the year, able to bring you CEDIA, able to bring you New York Digital Signage Week, and already, crazy as it sounds, already getting ready for Integrated Systems Europe. So check that out if you would, please. Really quick side note, Mr. Tucker is not the only friend of AVNation that has started a new job this week. I wanted to take a minute and congratulate a young woman by the name of Megan Dutta. The SCN has been a good friend to AVNation and the entire New Bay family. Other magazines as well have been as well, but Megan started as the new editor, and I wanted to congratulate her and mention that. So check that out. That's AV Networks is the website, but that's Megan started out. I think yesterday was her first day, so congratulations to her. We have a brand new program called the Daily Download. 5 minutes of programs like this. Live, State of Control, all of our programs. It's 5 minutes of those programs to kind of give you a sense of what those are, but also talks about, takes those programs and cuts them down in 5 minutes. It comes your way every single day, so check that out. All of our programs and everything else can be found on our website or on iTunes, so check that out if you would, please. So that's all the time we have. Thanks so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. This has been AV Week.